There's this really specific universal kind of anxiety. You're sitting at your computer, you're staring at a job offer in your inbox, and it's
Yeah.
exactly the job you want, right? The title is perfect, the company is great, but the number staring back at you, it's just okay.
Yeah, that's the worst feeling.
Right. And suddenly you're completely frozen. Like your hands are just hovering over the keyboard. You're wondering if you should ask for more money. And you're realizing that you are flying totally in the dark. You don't know if asking will make them rescind the offer or if they actually have more money to give. It is this terrible, paralyzing moment of just pure guesswork.
It really is. And, that paralysis is entirely by design.
Wait, by design?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The reason you feel so stuck in that moment is because you are operating with a severe deficit of information. You're essentially trying to solve this highly complex equation where the other side holds all the variables. And they're keeping those variables hidden from you on purpose.
And that is exactly what we're curing today. Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're taking a massive amount of insider intelligence, internal hiring strategies, HR constraints, compensation playbooks, and we are entirely flipping the script on salary negotiation.
Which is so needed, honestly.
It really is, because normally all the advice out there is focused on what you, the candidate, should do, like how you should stand, what power poses you should strike, what exact psychological script you should read into the mirror. But for this deep dive, we are exposing exactly what happens on the employer's side. We are taking you behind the curtain. The goal here is to decode the employer's black box so that you never, ever have to guess what's happening behind those closed doors.
And that's such a necessary perspective shift.
Hmm.
Because, well, the very premise of how we approach this is usually flawed right from the beginning. Candidates almost universally treat the employer as an opponent.
An opponent, like it's a fight.
Yeah, right. They view it as an adversarial battle,
Yeah.
a zero-sum game where the employer is trying to extract maximum labor for minimum pay, and you're trying to wrestle every last dime from their grip. Treating the employer as an opponent is the first and arguably the most damaging mistake candidates make.
Okay, let's unpack that right away. Because if they aren't the opponent, then who are they? And why does it feel so inherently adversarial when you're staring at that email? Because it really does feel like a battle of wills.
It feels adversarial because of a concept called information asymmetry, and this is really the foundational problem of every salary negotiation.
Information asymmetry.
Yeah, it simply means one party have vastly more relevant information than the other. Almost all negotiation advice treats the employer as this black box with totally unknown motivations. You, as the candidate, have incredibly limited information. You don't know the real budget. You don't know how flexible they are.
You don't know if the hiring manager is desperate.
Exactly. You don't know the internal dynamics of the team, but the employer. They have all of this information, and crucially, they know that you don't have it.
It's like, imagine you're playing a high-stakes game of poker, but the other side can see your cards. Not only can they see your cards, but they know exactly how much money is in the vault in the back room. They know what cards are left in the deck. And oh yeah, they literally own the casino.
That's a perfect analogy.
Meanwhile, you're just sitting there sweating, trying to bluff with a pair of twos, hoping they blink. It's an incredibly unbalanced game. And the psychological toll of that is heavy. Because when you're just guessing at what they have, you end up negotiating against yourself.
You negotiate against your own interests because the asymmetry creates fear. The human brain hates a void of information, so we just fill that void with our worst insecurities.
Right. We assume if we ask for $10,000 more, they're going to laugh at us and pull the offer.
Exactly. So you lower your ask before they even say a word, just to be safe. You give up leverage you didn't even know you had. So to level this playing field, we have to cure that asymmetry. We have to map out the casino. And to do that, we have to go back to the very beginning.
Long before a job is even posted.
Right. Long before it's on a website, long before you know the company is hiring, a massive, highly structured internal process has already taken place.
This is the part of the insider intelligence that fundamentally changed how I view the whole hiring process. Because as a candidate, you just see a job posting with a salary range at the bottom and you think, oh, a manager just made up that range yesterday to throw on LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's what everyone thinks.
But that number is actually the result of this massive mechanical apparatus.
It's a rigorous four-step process. Step one is compensation benchmarking. And this is not someone in HR just, scrolling through public job boards or looking up self-reported salaries on consumer websites to see what other people make. They're using professional, incredibly expensive compensation databases. institutions like Radford or Mercer.
Wait, how do those databases actually work? Because if I go online right now and look up, say, marketing manager salary, I get a massive spread. How is HR's data different from my Google search?
The difference is the source of the data. Consumer websites rely on self-reported data from users, which is notoriously unreliable.
Because people lie.
People inflate their salaries, yeah.
Yeah.
Or they forget to include their bonuses, or the data is 3 years old. Professional databases like Radford aggregate actual verified payroll data directly from the HR departments of thousands of companies.
Oh, wow. So it's the real numbers.
It is the hard data. They provide hyper-specific current market data tailored to the industry, the exact company size, and the geographic location.
Hmm.
HR knows exactly what a mid-level marketing manager at a mid-sized tech firm in Austin, Texas is making this quarter, down to the dollar.
So when a candidate comes in and says, well, the internet says my job should pay $120,000, HR is looking at a verified data set that is light years more accurate. The candidate is basically bringing a plastic knife to a gunfight.
That is exactly what's happening. That leads directly to step 2, which is the internal grade or band. Most mid to large organizations have a deeply entrenched compensation structure. Every single job is mapped to a grade or a band.
Okay, what does that look like in practice?
So, for example, a manager of marketing might automatically sit in grade 7. And grade 7 has a hard-coded salary band across the whole company, let's say $80,000 to $120,000. That band represents the absolute full spectrum of what the company is theoretically willing to pay anyone at that grade level, from a brand new promotion all the way to a 10-year veteran in that exact seat.
So if I'm tracking, the band is just the architectural blueprint. It's the absolute minimum and maximum for the category, which brings us to step 3, I imagine.
Right. Step 3 is establishing the hiring range. And this is where candidates consistently get confused. The hiring range is a realistic, narrow subset of the full band.
A narrow subset.
Yeah. HR and the hiring manager will sit down and say, okay, the theoretical band is 80K to 120K, but our actual target hiring range for this specific new person is 80K to 100K. They almost always target the lower or middle third of the overall band.
Why intentionally aim low if the band goes up to 120K? That feels sneaky.
It's not sneaky, it's practical. They have to leave room for future growth. If they hire you at the absolute maximum of the band at 120K, they cannot give you a meaningful annual raise next year without promoting you to a completely different job grade.
Oh, I see.
It mathematically breaks their internal progression system.
Right.
If you are maxed out on day 1, you are functionally taking a pay cut with inflation every single year until you get promoted.
Okay, wait, let me push back on this on behalf of anyone listening who has dealt with this. Because if a company posts a job listing online, and the listing explicitly says the range is 80 to 120,000, but secretly, behind closed doors, their internal hiring range is only up to 100,000.
Right.
When a candidate comes in, sees the 120K on the posting, and says, hey, I have great experience, I'm asking for 120K, the company acts shocked or resistant. Isn't that just straight up false advertising? I mean, it feels incredibly manipulative to post a high number you have no intention of paying a new hire.
It is a totally valid frustration, and it's actually a major source of friction in states that now mandate pay transparency. But from the employer's perspective, they are legally required to post the full band, not their internal hiring target.
So the law actually forces them to post the misleading number.
In a way, yes. When a recruiter tells you our maximum is 100,000, they usually mean that is their maximum comfortable hiring point for a new employee. It's a top of their realistic subset. It doesn't mean the company literally cannot legally pay 120K. It means paying 120K would max out the role entirely. And that tension leads us to step 4, which is the ultimate reality check of the whole process. The budget.
Ah, the actual money in the bank.
Exactly. The budget is controlled by finance. Finance doesn't care about the theoretical HR band. Finance cares about the specific line item budget. The HR band might say up to 120K. But if finance only approved a budget line of 95K for this quarter, then 95,000 is your actual ceiling. The relationship between the approved budget and the posted range is the invisible wall candidates keep running into.
So it's not a conspiracy against the candidate personally. It's an internal tug-of-war between HR's structural bands and finance's actual wallet. So if the budget is 95K, is that an absolute law? Like, can it ever be broken?
Nothing in corporate finance is ever entirely absolute. There is a concept we can call unannounced flexibility. HR and finance have strict rules, yes, but there are four specific factors that give them the power to break their own rules and exceed that budget.
Unannounced flexibility. I like the sound of that. How do we trigger it? What are the four factors?
So factor one is urgency. You have to ask yourself, how much operational pain is this vacancy causing the company?
So their pain is your gain.
Exactly. If this is a brand new role they just posted last week, they have zero urgency. They will sit and wait for the perfect candidate at the perfect price. But what if this role has been sitting empty for 6 months? What if the rest of the team is burning out, client projects are failing, and the hiring manager is getting screamed at by their boss?
That manager is in real pain.
And that manager will march into finance and demand an exception to the budget just to stop the bleeding.
That shifts the entire perspective. The negotiation isn't just about my skills, it's about their pain. If they are bleeding, they will pay for the bandage. Okay, what is factor two?
Factor two is candidate quality. This is straightforward but difficult to achieve. If you come in and you don't just meet the requirements, but you bring exceptional, rare skills that significantly exceed the baseline, you basically hand the hiring manager the ammunition they need.
Right.
They can take your resume to HR and build a business case that says, look, this person is a unicorn, they will save us money elsewhere, they justify an exception.
So urgency and quality make sense because they directly benefit the employer's bottom line. But what about external threats? That brings us to factor three, right?
Yes. Factor three is competition. And this is a massive lever. If you have a competing offer from another company, the employer's budget flexibility expands almost instantly.
Because they're scared of losing you.
Exactly. Think about their math.
Yeah.
If they lose you now, after 3 months of interviewing, the cost is enormous. They lose all the recruiter time, the manager's hours spent interviewing, they face delayed productivity, and they have to start the whole search over.
That is so true.
Giving you an extra 10 grand is mathematically much cheaper for them than losing you to a competitor and starting from scratch.
So urgency, quality, and competition can bend the budget. But you mentioned a fourth factor, and I have a feeling this is the one that ruins the party.
It is. The fourth factor is the real constraint, the one that is hardest to bend. Internal equity. You simply cannot pay a brand new hire $110,000 if the 3 other people already doing that exact same job on the team are only making $90,000.
Because the moment they find out, and people always find out, whether it's at a happy hour or someone leaves a spreadsheet open, you have a full-blown mutiny on your hands. You've just demoralized your veteran staff to appease a newcomer.
Internal equity is a genuine structural barrier. A manager might want to pay you more, but HR will block it to protect the ecosystem of the team. However, it's also highly weaponized.
What do you mean by weaponized?
Sometimes it's a real constraint, but other times recruiters will use internal equity as a convenient, unarguable excuse to hold the line on a budget, even if equity isn't truly at risk. It's a great shield because a candidate can't verify it.
Okay, so let's zoom out and look at the casino again. They know their bands, they know their exact budget, they know their internal equity risks, and they know exactly how much pain they're in. They know their own constraints perfectly. But what do they know about you? We talked about the poker game and how they can see your cards. Let's open up the secret dossier. What exactly does the employer hold on the candidate, and how are they getting it?
They hold a surprising amount of intelligence, and the mechanisms they use to gather it are sophisticated. First, in many cases, they know your current or previous salary.
Okay, I have to stop you there. I thought asking for your previous salary was made illegal in a bunch of places. Isn't that a protected question now?
It has been in many jurisdictions. Many states and cities have strictly banned salary history questions because they perpetuate historical pay inequities. I mean, if you were underpaid at your last job, you shouldn't be doomed to be underpaid forever. However, just because a recruiter cannot ask you directly does not mean they do not find out.
How are they getting it if they can't ask?
Through several avenues. First, employers use third-party background check companies. Some of these companies have access to vast payroll databases, like the Work Number, where your previous employer may have submitted your W-2 data for income verification purposes.
Wait, really? Just a massive database of our W-2s?
Yeah. While legislation is trying to crack down on this, loopholes exist. Second, there are whisper networks within niche industries. If you work in a specialized field like advertising or specialized tech, recruiters talk.
Wow.
The hiring manager might know your current boss, or they know the standard pay scale at your current firm. They can triangulate your title and your firm and guess your salary within a few $1,000s. They often have a very accurate estimate of what you are making right now without ever asking you.
That feels incredibly invasive. It's like having someone look at your bank account before they decide what to pay you. What else is in the dossier?
They know exactly what your predecessor made. If someone held this job before you and just quit, there's a hard number on record. The hiring manager naturally anchors to that number. They know if your ask is significantly higher or lower than what they historically paid for this seat.
That makes sense.
Furthermore, they know exactly what your would-be colleagues make. If you ask for 130K, and they know the senior-most person on the team only makes 115K, they instantly know your number creates an administrative nightmare.
So they have the historical financial data, the structural data, and your past salary data. But do they have behavioral data? Like, are they reading our psychology during the interview?
Absolutely. They know how long you've been searching, and they use that to infer your leverage. Recruiters are highly trained observers. They track how quickly you respond to emails. They note how eagerly you make yourself available for a sixth round of interviews on short notice.
Oh, no.
They can literally see how fatigued you look on Zoom. If you have been dragging through a 4-month interview gauntlet, they know you are tired. They know you are emotionally invested and eager to just close the deal and stop interviewing. And when a candidate is eager to close, their negotiating leverage drops significantly.
The interview fatigue is so real. I mean, by month 4, you'll agree to almost anything just to stop doing behavioral assessments and panel interviews. But I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier about the competing offers. You mentioned that a competing offer instantly expands their budget. It's the ultimate trump card.
Okay.
And the temptation for a candidate listening to this is to say, well, if they have all the secret data, I'll just invent a competing offer to get leverage. I'll bluff.
Oh.
Yeah. Let me just throw a massive red flag on the play here. Fake it till you make it works great for building your internal confidence. But faking a competing offer during a salary negotiation is like handing the employer a lit stick of dynamite and asking them to hold it to start your new relationship.
It is a massive, often fatal risk.
Yeah.
It is not just a little white lie. If you mention a competing offer, a sophisticated employer will not just say, oh, wow, okay, here is more money. They will want specific.
They're going to dig.
They might ask for the name of the firm to understand who they are competing against. They might ask about the timeline of the other offer or the structure of the package. Is it equity heavy or base heavy? They might even try to verify it through back channels if they know people at that firm.
And if they catch you...
If they discover you are fabricating leverage, it doesn't just end the negotiation. It fundamentally destroys your credibility and trust before you've even started the job. They will pull the offer entirely.
Yeah, do not bluff with dynamite. Okay, so we now know all the cards they're holding. We know their structural bans, their budget constraints, the internal equity tripwires. We know they are reading our fatigue and possibly looking at our past salary data. Let's bring this into the real world. Let's look at exactly what happens the moment you actually make your counteroffer and hang up the phone. Picture this. You finally gather the courage, you ask for an extra $15,000, and the recruiter says, let me take this back to the team. Click. What physically happens when they hang up? What is happening in the room where the decisions are made?
The moment that phone hangs up, one of 4 distinct internal scenarios is triggered based on the math of your counteroffer.
So if I ask for a number that fits nicely inside their secret parameters, I assume that's the easiest path.
Yes, that is scenario 1. Your counteroffer is within the range. Let's say their internal hiring range was up to 100K. They lowballed you a bit and offered 90K, and you countered at 95K. In this scenario, the internal conversation is incredibly brief.
Just a quick check.
The hiring manager usually has the authority to approve it directly, or it requires a 2-minute email to the HR partner. They look at the spreadsheet, see that 95K is under the 100K cap, and say, approved. The decision is fast, and the callback to you is fast.
That's the dream, but let's say I ask for a number that breaks that ceiling. I'm asking for 105K, and their hiring budget stops at 100K. But the manager really likes me. What physically happens when they hang up the phone?
That is scenario 2. You are above the range, but worth it. This is where the machinery gets complex. You ask for 105K. The hiring manager cannot just say yes. They do not have the authority. They literally have to build a business case and present it to HR and finance.
What goes into a business case for a salary bump? Is it just an email saying, please?
No, it's a formal justification. The manager has to articulate the ROI of the extra $5,000. They might write, if we lose this candidate over 5K, leaving this role open for 3 more months will cost us $50,000 in delayed product launches. Furthermore, this candidate has specific software certifications that will save us $10,000 in external training costs.
Oh, they're doing math?
They're doing math to prove to finance that breaking the budget is actually a cost-saving measure in the long run.
And building that level of justification, getting it on the agenda for a finance meeting, getting the approvals, that takes time.
It takes a lot of time. Scenario 2 typically results in 24 to 72 hours of complete radio silence from the company.
I am so glad you brought this up because those 72 hours are absolute psychological torture for the candidate. If you are listening to this, you know exactly what I mean. You're sitting there staring at your phone thinking, oh my God, I offended them. They think I'm arrogant. They're calling the second choice candidate right now. I just ruined my life over 5 grand.
That is the tragedy of the information asymmetry. The reality is the exact opposite of what your anxiety is telling you. That 24 to 72 hours of radio silence is actually incredibly positive.
That's a good thing.
It means you haven't been rejected. If they were going to say no, they would just say no. The delay itself is valuable information. It means a manager is literally sitting in a meeting room or drafting a detailed document, fighting for you internally, trying to secure more budget on your behalf. They are doing the hard work to get you what you asked for.
That is a massive realization. Silence doesn't mean anger. Silence means bureaucracy. So, if we are listening to this and we just got told, let me check, and then it's crickets for 2 days, we need to realize it's not a rejection of our worth. It's literally just a spreadsheet constraint in a department we've never met. But what happens if the manager fights for us, but finance just says no?
That brings us to scenario 3. You are above range, and there is no exception possible. Finance has slammed the door. The budget is locked. Or internal equity simply cannot be broken. In this scenario, the internal conversation pivots.
To what?
The hiring manager and HR sit down and discuss non-salary alternatives. They ask themselves, can we bump the job title to a higher grade to legally unlock a new band? Can we offer a one-time signing bonus? Can we throw in an extra week of vacation to sweeten the deal? They want you, but they are strategizing how to bridge the gap without touching the base salary line item.
And what if I ask for something completely outrageous? What if I ask for 150K when the budget is 100K?
That triggers scenario 4, the walkaway number. You have asked for a number that fundamentally breaks their budget, shatters their internal equity, and violates their compensation philosophy. The internal conversation here is stark and brief.
Are they laughing at me?
No, they're deciding if you are truly worth dismantling their entire internal pay structure for, or if they just need to cut their losses and let you go. Often, if you hit this wall and show no flexibility, they will formally decline your counter and hold firm on their original offer, or in rare cases where they feel the gap in expectations is too fast, they will part ways.
Looking at all 4 of these scenarios, something really stands out to me. In none of these scenarios is the internal conversation. Wow, what a greedy, ungrateful candidate. How dare they ask for more? It seems purely mathematical. It's about ROI, equity, and budget lines.
This is the crux of this entire deep dive. The internal conversation is practically never this candidate is greedy. It is purely a mechanical discussion about constraints. Are we within budget? Can we justify the cost? Will it cause a team mutiny?
It's just business.
Exactly. Asking for more money, provided it is done professionally, is completely expected. The hiring manager isn't personally offended. They're just looking at a spreadsheet trying to make the cells turn green.
So if the internal conversation isn't about greed, if they aren't personally offended, why are we as candidates so terrified of asking? Why do we feel like we are committing a moral crime when we negotiate our livelihood?
It's because we suffer from the greedy illusion. There is a deeply persistent societal myth in professional culture that negotiating makes you look difficult, high maintenance, or ungrateful. But when you look at the sociological reality from the sources, the data completely dispels this myth. In surveys of hiring managers across various industries, the overwhelming majority report that negotiating has zero negative effect on their impression of a candidate.
Zero negative effect. It doesn't hurt you at all.
Actually, it frequently increases their impression of you. Think about it from the manager's perspective. When you negotiate calmly, logically, and professionally, you are demonstrating competence. You are showing them that you know your own value, you communicate effectively under pressure, and most importantly, you signal that you will advocate for their business just as fiercely as you advocate for yourself once you are in the role.
Oh, that is a powerful reframe. I'm not being greedy. I'm auditioning my advocacy skills for the job. If I'm going to be a project manager fighting for resources for my team, I better show them I know how to fight for resources for myself.
Precisely. But we also have to acknowledge that this fear of seeming greedy is not distributed equally. The research shows that this fear disproportionately affects women, first-generation professionals, non-native English speakers, and members of marginalized groups.
Which makes sense given history.
Societally, these groups have often been implicitly or explicitly penalized for asserting themselves. The fear is not irrational. It feels very real and historically grounded. But in the context of a modern, structured professional salary negotiation, the fear is mathematically unjustified. The system is built with the expectation that you will negotiate.
Okay, so the system expects it, and they won't hate me for asking. In fact, they might even respect me more. But what actually separates a clumsy, awkward negotiation from an impressive one in their eyes? How do I be the candidate that makes them say, wow, we really need this person on our team?
The sources outline 4 specific traits of an impressive negotiation. These are the hallmarks of a candidate who understands the game. Trait number 1 is specificity. You cannot just say, I was hoping for a bit more.
That sounds weak.
It sounds amateur and unresearched. The impressive candidate grounds their ask in data. They say, based on my research into market rates for this specific role in this geographic market, and considering the specific technical skills I bring, I was expecting something closer to 95,000. A specific evidence-backed number signals high professional competence. It gives the manager the exact phrasing they need for their business case.
Show your work. Just like in math class, you are literally handing them the script they need to take to finance. What's the second trait?
Genuine interest. You must express enthusiasm before you make the ask. A bare counteroffer can feel cold or transactional. But if you start by saying, I am genuinely so excited about this opportunity and the team, I would love to find a way to make these numbers work so I can get started. Based on my research, that lands completely differently. It frames the negotiation as a collaboration to get you on board, rather than a standoff.
It's the spoonful of sugar. It disarms the tension. Trait number 3.
Full package awareness. This means negotiating on multiple dimensions, not just hammering away at the base pay. Impressive candidates understand that compensation is a complex puzzle. They talk about base, bonus, vacation, and professional development. If you only focus on base salary, and the base salary is genuinely constrained by a locked budget, you look inflexible and unsophisticated. You leave massive value on the table because you aren't looking at the whole board.
And the final trait.
Knowing when to stop.
This is vital. A professional candidate accepts a final answer gracefully, even if it is a bit below their ideal number. They know when the well is dry. Pushing repeatedly, aggressively, after the employer has given a clear, firm final answer is the only thing that actually creates that negative, difficult candidate impression everyone fears. Okay, but to know when to stop, you have to know what their no actually means. Because in my experience, in HR speak, a no isn't always a hard stop. It's often a detour sign. Let's spend some real time here. Because we need an HR decoder ring. Recruiters use these very specific phrases that sound absolute, but they often have hidden trapdoors in them. Let's translate the dialect of salary negotiation. First phrase, and probably the most intimidating one, that's our maximum. If a recruiter says that, is it actually their maximum?
Sometimes it is a genuine truth, but frequently it is just a standard negotiating position to test your resolve and see if you will back down. The way to decode this is to test the boundary by pivoting. If they say, that's our maximum, you do not just say, okay, and hang up. You reply, I understand the constraints on the salary. Is there any flexibility on a signing bonus or an extra week of vacation?
Oh, that's clever.
If they immediately refuse to budge on any of those other perks, if they lock down completely, then the maximum is probably real. Their hands are entirely tied by finance. But if they say, well, we might be able to do a small signing bonus to bridge the gap, then you just learned that maximum only meant maximum base salary. They had more money, they just couldn't put it in that specific bucket.
That makes so much sense. You poke the wall to see if it's concrete or drywall. Let's try another one. This one always feels like a trap. We don't have flexibility on the base salary.
This is a classic, and it is almost always a subtle invitation. Notice the qualifier there, base salary. They are stating a genuine constraint. They cannot touch the base, probably because of internal equity or a strict band limit. But by explicitly adding that qualifier, they are subtly telling you that there is flexibility elsewhere.
It is exactly like a secret trapdoor. If someone says, I cannot let you through the front door, they are going out of their way to specify the front door. They are basically winking at you and saying, walk around the house and check the back door.
That is exactly what they are doing. A good recruiter wants to close the deal. If they have tools to do it, they will hint at them. Next phrase. Internal equity doesn't allow us to go higher.
We touched on this earlier. This is the mutiny prevention excuse. But how do I know if it's real or if they are just using it to shut me down?
You test it by politely asking for the parameters.
Hmm.
You respond, I completely understand the need for internal equity and fairness across the team. Could you share what that internal equity band allows for this specific level?
Put them on the spot.
Right. If they give you a specific, slightly lower number, say the team average is 92K, so we can't go above
Uh,
95K, it's real. They are giving you the data. If they get flustered, refuse to answer, or the number magically matches the exact top of their original lower hiring range, they might just be using the concept of equity as a convenient shield for a budget constraint they don't want to admit to.
Okay, here's one that always makes me nervous because it feels like a high-pressure sales tactic at a car dealership. We'd like to get this done quickly.
It can feel like a pressure tactic, but the translation is usually, we want you badly and we're vulnerable. If they want it done quickly, they are terrified you are going to entertain other offers. They know they have a good candidate on the hook, and they want to reel you in before you realize your own market value. Their urgency is your leverage.
So don't panic.
Right. You don't abuse it by dragging it out for weeks, but you use it gently to push for your ideal package, knowing they are highly motivated to bypass red tape to close the deal.
What about the future promise? I hear this one all the time, especially from startups. We can't do that number now, but we'll revisit compensation in the first year. Or we'll do a 6-month review and bump you up then.
This one is incredibly dangerous because it is often used to placate a candidate and manage their expectations without the company making a tangible financial commitment. The decoder test here is documentation. You respond, that sounds like a great path forward. Can we put specific performance review criteria and the target salary increase in writing in the offer letter?
Call their bluff.
If they are serious and it is a real plan, they will formalize it. If they deflect, saying, oh, it's just an informal process, we'll see how you do, HR doesn't let us write that down, then it is not a genuine commitment. It is a ghost promise. Do not calculate it into your total compensation decision.
Wow. Get it in writing or it doesn't exist. And the last phrase from the decoder ring. This is the best offer we've made at this level.
This is a psychological play. It is designed to make you feel that asking for more would make you uniquely unreasonable or greedy. The most professional response is to calmly call their bluff by asking for transparency. I really appreciate that, and I'm honored. Could you share what that figure is just so I can understand my place within the overall structural range? It diffuses the psychological pressure by bringing the conversation back to objective data.
That is brilliant. You aren't getting emotional. You are just asking for the spreadsheet coordinates. So, going back to that trapdoor analogy for a second, the recruiter says, we have no flexibility on the base salary. They lock the front door, so you walk around to the back door. What is sitting right behind that back door? Because according to our sources, this is the most underutilized tool in the entire negotiation process.
It is the magic bullet of salary negotiation, the signing bonus.
This signing bonus.
Yeah.
It feels like something only professional athletes or investment bankers get. Why is a signing bonus such a powerful, universally applicable tool for regular corporate jobs?
To understand why it's a magic bullet, we have to look deeply at why finance departments are so terrified of raising your base salary. Base salary is permanent. But more than that, it is compounding. Let's do the math. If I give you an extra $10,000 in base salary today, I don't just pay that $10,000 this year, I pay it every single year you work here.
And it builds.
Furthermore, when I calculate your standard 5% annual merit raise next year, that raise is calculated on top of the higher base. Your employer 401k match is calculated on the higher base. Your target bonus percentage is calculated on the higher base. By giving you $10K in base salary today, I am artificially inflating my payroll costs for you exponentially for the next decade.
It's an exponential math problem. You aren't asking for 10 grand. Over 5 years, you are asking for 50 or 60 grand.
Exactly. But a signing bonus. A signing bonus is a one-time, non-compounding, isolated cost. It happens once, it clears the books in the current quarter, and it never cascades into future years. Finance departments and HR teams absolutely love signing bonuses. It solves their immediate, painful gap of getting a great candidate to sign the offer, but it costs the company significantly less over a 3 to 5 year timeline.
And it completely circumvents the internal equity problem we talked about earlier, doesn't it? Because if my coworker makes 90K base and I get hired at 90K base, HR is happy, the team is equitable. The fact that I also got a $10,000 check on my first day doesn't show up on the permanent salary roster in the same way. It keeps their spreadsheets clean and prevents mutiny.
Precisely. It is the ultimate workaround for structural constraints.
Let me paint a vivid picture for the listener of how this actually plays out in reality. Let's say you're on the phone negotiating. You really need 100,000 to make the move worth it for your family. The company says, "We love you, but our absolute unbendable budget ceiling is 90K base salary. We cannot go higher. You are 10,000 apart." Most people would either walk away or begrudgingly accept the 90K and feel resentful. But instead, you pull the magic bullet. You say, "I completely understand the base salary is locked at 90K. What if we keep the base at 90K, but include a one-time $10,000 signing bonus to bridge the gap for this first year?"
And in that scenario, a company that previously said they have no money is highly likely to suddenly find the money and say yes.
Right, because you solved their administrative problem while solving your financial problem. Think about the math for you, the candidate. In year one, what goes into your bank account? A 90K salary plus a 10K bonus. Your bank account still sees 100,000 in year one. You got exactly the cash you needed to feel valued today, and HR gets to keep their base salary structure perfectly intact. It's a massive win-win that candidates leave on the table simply because they don't know the back door exists.
And candidates who don't ask for it are missing a massive opportunity.
Yeah.
But a signing bonus isn't the only lever you can pull behind the back door. To truly win the negotiation, to be that sophisticated, impressive candidate we talked about, you have to zoom out. You have to stop obsessively staring at the base salary number and look at the total chessboard. You have to look beyond the base.
Let's spend some real time on the total compensation package, because there are a lot of hidden numbers and complex financial instruments in an offer letter that people just gloss over because they don't understand them. Where should we start unpacking this?
Let's start with equity. In startup tech or corporate environments, equity, whether it's stock options or restricted stock units, often called RSUs, can actually end up being vastly more valuable than your base salary over time. But it is highly misunderstood, and is full of traps. Candidates just see a big dollar figure attached to the equity in the offer letter and get starry-eyed. But you have to ask the hard questions.
Okay, let's break this down because I hear these terms thrown around a lot. RSUs, vesting schedules, cliffs. Explain this to me like I'm five. Let's say a startup offers me 10,000 shares and they say it's on a 4-year vesting schedule with a 1-year cliff. What does a cliff actually mean? Because if I'm new to the startup world, that sounds like you're going to push me off a ledge after 12 months. How does that trap people?
A cliff is a retention mechanism. Vesting means earning the right to actually own the shares. If you have a 1-year cliff, it means you earn absolutely 0 shares for the first 364 days you work there. On day 365, your 1-year anniversary, a large chunk, usually 25% of your shares, suddenly vests or becomes yours. After that cliff, the rest of the shares usually vest monthly over the remaining 3 years.
So I've worked there for 11 months, pouring my heart into the company, and then I get laid off or I quit because the culture is toxic. I walk away with 0 equity.
Exactly, 0. You fell off the cliff. That is why understanding the mechanics is so crucial. A $100,000 equity grant means nothing if you leave before it vests. Furthermore, you have to interrogate the valuation. A private startup might say, "We are giving you $50,000 in equity." You need to ask, based on what internal valuation? If the company is valuing itself at $1 billion internally, but the real-world market would only value them at $500 million, your paper money is suddenly worth half of what you thought. You have to know the realistic upside and what is just paper value versus real-world cash value.
Because paper money doesn't buy groceries, you have to know if those shares are actually going to turn into liquidity. Okay, so equity is complex. What's next on the chessboard?
Bonuses, and specifically, the critical difference between the types of bonuses. There are guaranteed bonuses, target bonuses, and discretionary bonuses. A guaranteed bonus is basically deferred salary. You get it no matter what happens, it's just paid out in a lump sum later. A target bonus means you get it if you or the company hit specific, pre-agreed, measurable performance metrics.
Like hitting a sales quota or the company hitting a revenue target?
Correct, but then there's the discretionary bonus.
Oh, let me push back on discretionary bonuses right here, because I see this all the time in job offers and it drives me crazy. The offer says, base salary is 80K with a 20% discretionary bonus. How do you value a promise? A discretionary bonus does not pay my rent if the company decides they had a bad quarter, or if the CEO simply decides he wants to reinvest the profits instead of paying out the bonus pool. It feels like fake money used to inflate the total compensation number. How should candidates weigh hard cash versus soft discretionary perks?
It is a critical distinction, and your skepticism is entirely justified.
Where?
When calculating your actual guaranteed total compensation to make your budget, You should generally value a discretionary bonus at 0.
Just 0.
Yes. If it happens, it's a pleasant surprise, but you cannot build your life around it. Employers will frequently try to use a high discretionary bonus to justify offering a low base salary. Your counter to that is exactly what you just articulated. I appreciate the upside potential of the discretionary bonus, but for my guaranteed living expenses and financial security, I need the base salary to reflect X.
You have to force them back to the guaranteed numbers.
Okay, what about benefits? I feel like people just look at whether a company has health insurance and check the box without looking at the details.
Benefits valuation is huge, and the differences can literally amount to tens of thousands of dollars a year. Health insurance premiums, deductibles, 401k matching, these have massive, real dollar values that candidates routinely ignore when comparing offers. Let's look at the math on a realistic scenario. Imagine you have two offers. Company A offers a 100k salary. They pay 100% of your family's healthcare premiums, and they offer a 6% 401k match. Company B offers a 105k salary, but you have to pay $500 a month out of pocket for your family's healthcare premiums, and they only match 3% on retirement.
Okay, doing the mental math.
The 105k at Company B looks bigger on the offer letter, but when you factor in $6,000 a year in healthcare costs and the lost $3,000 in retirement matching, Company A's 100k job actually leaves you with far more disposable income and long-term wealth.
It's all about doing the math on the total package, not just the headline number. Precisely. And there are other buckets, too, that you can negotiate. Professional development is a major one. Did the company offer a $5,000 annual training budget? Will they pay for your master's degree or specialized coaching? In industries where your technical skills constantly need updating to stay relevant, an employer paying to your certifications is direct money in your pocket that you otherwise would have had to spend yourself to stay employable.
And lastly, the one perk everyone cares about right now, flexibility.
Yes. Remote work, hybrid schedules, flexible hours. Surveys consistently show that modern workers are willing to accept tangibly lower base salaries in exchange for genuine flexibility. But again, you must define genuine. If an employer says we offer flexible hours, that can mean you can leave early on Friday to pick up your kids, or it can mean we expect you to answer Slack messages at midnight on a Tuesday. You have to interrogate the reality of the flexibility with the hiring manager before you assign a mental dollar value to it.
So, bringing this all together, when employers are looking at a candidate, they don't just see a single salary number. They view this as a complete ecosystem, right? A multidimensional package deal.
Exactly. They are offering a package. Candidates who only hammer away at the base salary, completely ignoring the equity traps, the benefit valuations, and the bonus structures, look incredibly unsophisticated to the employer. They leave massive value on the table because, as we established earlier with the unannounced flexibility, employers frequently have vastly more freedom to move money around in these non-salary buckets than they do in the rigid base budget.
This has been such a massive paradigm shift. If you are listening to this and you are still sitting at your computer staring at that job offer, think about the journey we just went on. You now understand that the number on the page is tied to a rigid internal HR ban and a finance budget, not necessarily a reflection of your personal worth. You realize that if they go silent for 72 hours after you ask for more money, it's not because they hate you. It's because a manager is writing a detailed business case to fight for you.
You're in your corner.
You can completely shed the historical feel of looking greedy because the data proves that advocating for yourself with specificity, market data, and grace actually makes them respect your competence more. And if you hit a brick wall on the base salary, you now know how to walk around to the back door and pull alternative levers. You know how to ask for the magic bullet signing bonus or negotiate your total benefits package. The information asymmetry that paralyzed you at the start of this deep dive is gone. The lights in the casino are on. You know exactly what cards they are holding.
You do. And if we connect all of these specific tactics to one final, broader picture, a paradigm shift to leave you with, it's this. What if you stopped viewing the salary negotiation as the final, agonizing, adversarial hurdle of the interview process? What if instead you started viewing it as your very first collaborative project as an employee of this new company?
Oh, I like that.
You and the hiring manager are not enemies. You are sitting on the same side of the table, working together to solve a complex resource allocation problem involving HR constraints and finance budgets. How you conduct yourself in this negotiation, how calmly you handle their constraints, how creatively you find solutions like signing bonuses, how clearly you communicate your market value, teaches them exactly how you will advocate for their business, their projects, and their resources in the future.
Yep.
You aren't just negotiating your pay, you are demonstrating your professional caliber in real time.
That reframes everything. You aren't fighting them, you are working with them to get you in the door. We started this deep dive talking about that terrible anxiety of feeling completely in the dark, guessing at a rigged game of poker. But armed with this insider intelligence, the game isn't rigged anymore. You know their structural constraints, you know the psychology of the recruiter, and you know exactly how the mechanics of HR work. Take this inside knowledge, step into your next career move with total clarity, and never negotiate against yourself again.